You have a lunatic of declining mental powers as president who's put Russian stooges, drunks, former drug addicts who are destroying the country. If you allow your party be defined by a guy who's mayor of New York because he wants 5 grocery stores or something, the only honorable thing to do is just, when you wake up the next day, is just kill yourself.
Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. Delighted to have back a former Republican media consultant that worked on 5 presidential campaigns. He's a senior advisor at the Lincoln Project, co-host of the podcast Strategy Session, produced by the affiliated Lincoln Square on Substack. He's from Mississippi. His books include It Was All a Lie, The Conspiracy to End America, and my favorite, even though it's kind of as sad as the other ones, The Last Season, A Father, a Son, and a Lifetime of College Football. It's Stuart Stevens. Welcome back, brother. How you doing?
Hey, brother. Great to be here, man.
We'll get to football at the end, of course. Obviously, we'll not let you off the hook without discussing the weekend's events on the college football field. But we need to start with the conspiracy to end America. I think I might have mentioned this one of the other times you were on, but for the new listeners, I think it's worth bringing back because I didn't mean to double book you back to back with JVL. And I'm a little concerned about the darkness that people are going to get because I remember this was before Trump even won. This was the fall of 2016. The New Yorker is writing a big profile on the Never Trumpers as if we mattered. All 20 of us or 15, however many there were. And Ryan Lizza, who's also got a Substack, interviewed all of us. And I remember, he interviewed me in a coffee shop in DC. I remember where I was sitting with him. And at the end of it, he just goes, "Whoa, man, you're in a dark place about where things are going." And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, he's like, "There's only one guy I interviewed that was darker than you." And I was like, "Who?" He said, "Stuart Stevens." So here we are, baby. Here we are. Everybody just buckle up.
When I get depressed, I listen to you because I always get cheered up because you're such an optimist, Tim,
So tell us about your state, how you see things right now. What are you most worried about? Where's your alarm?
Think about it. A year ago, you and I were on here and we said a year from now, you're going to have an army of masked men chasing gardeners through Brentwood with the funding larger than the Marines, larger than any 2 militaries, except any military in the world except for 2. You're going to have former Miss Snow Queen of South Dakota, head of Homeland Security. You're going to have a lunatic, longtime heroin addict who defends being a heroin addict, by the way, in charge of America's health, who's also a steroid freak. And Cass Patel running the FBI. We said, no, look, that's not going to happen, dude. So, I think it's actually worse than I thought. And I would have thought that some element of Republican responsibility would have held. And I go back to my, longtime friend, client, Roger Wicker, known him
Is
forever.
He still in the Senate?
He's chairman of the Armed Services Committee, dude.
Okay, yeah. I saw his little Ukraine pin. I remember his Ukraine pin during the confirmation hearing.
Funny you say that, as he's still in the U.S. Senate. All his life, Roger's wanted to be chairman of the Armed Services Committee. Yeah. He finally is. He spent his entire life building up alliances, pro-NATO, all of this. Very serious human being. And he ushers in Pete Hegseth. I don't get it. He's not up for re-election until, he's going to be 80. He's not going to run again. Why do you care? And I think it's just indicative. And I've said this, I don't think you can call yourself a patriot and vote for Pete Hegseth or Kristi Noem.
No.
And I think Democrats need to get about using that kind of language. It's the language we used to use.
Also, just like on its face, there's so many examples of this, but Joni, she was in the military, has personal backstory with sexual assault. There are ways in which she's unserious, but as a serious person on this front, if she wasn't going to run again, could have held a line in the sand on this, with her and Wicker and McConnell. He's a weekend Fox and Friends co-host, and now he's going to be arming the military as it goes after their alleged enemies within instead of without. It's really bleak.
Generally, we should leave appointing the town drunk to run the military to Russia. Yeah. They actually do that better. But, my theory about this is, that Trump does this not because he doesn't know that Pete Hegseth's a moron, not because he doesn't know Kristi Noem is there, not because he doesn't know Cash Patel. He does it to humiliate the senators, to prove I can make you vote for a drunken weekend talk show host to run the largest military, the greatest military in the history of the world. You will degrade yourself to that degree. It is like the way Saddam would make families that he executed dissidents pay for the bullet.
Yeah.
It's just that little extra. See, I control you.
Yeah.
And I think it works.
Woof.
I think it's humiliating and it works. And I think they all get together and tell themselves it's not that bad, which is the same thing lynch mobs do.
Yeah.
And they justify it. And, you know, the Republican Party's become a functional element of the Russian Federation.
Well, so that might be a part answer to my next question, because I wondered what was worrying you most. I like to ask that to people so we can kind of look ahead, because we have 3.5 years left of this. That's an assessment of where we are. Given that, what has you, keeping one eye open there in Vermont?
Well, look, I'm actually, an optimist in one sense. I don't think that the 24 election was in any way an endorsement of Trumpism. On election day, the right track of the country was 27%. No incumbent parties ever won when it was lower than 45. You had a job approval for the incumbent president, 40. Incumbent parties ever gotten 2 points higher. So actually, Harris did a lot better.
Yeah.
And we know that other people, Nikki Haley would have done better probably. So I don't think that it's an endorsement of Trumpism. They knew that Project 2025 was poison. Now that they're making people drink it, it's not going down any easier. And that Trump coalition that existed was always kind of a Fabergé egg, because you had MAGA over here that would demand you chase gardeners through Brentwood with masked men. And if you did that, you were going to hurt yourself with Hispanics without a doubt.
Right.
And probably when they did a little better with African Americans, only 87% voted against them. Probably on this crusade to rehabilitate the Confederacy isn't particularly helping them with African Americans. We've seen that little boom that they had with young voters, particularly male voters, seems to have collapsed. You look at the polling. So I could make a case. I wrote an article that November 24 will be sort of the Pickett's charge of MAGA. They can't get over the wall, get right there. They all get killed. Now, the exception to that is if you can curate the election. So, in very simple terms, the base of MAGA is non-college educated white people, which, we did Bush in 2000. That was 60%. Now it's 39% and it'll be less when we finish. I mean, it's the fastest declining large demographic. So if you just said
60% of the country to 39%,
60% of the electorate to 39% of the electorate. So I go back to this. So Ronald Reagan wins this sweeping landslide, right, in 80 with 55% of the white vote. John McCain loses with 58% of the white vote.
Right.
Says it all. So just in a crude sense, you say, okay, if you know that your base is non-college educated white voters, what would you do? You try to make the electorate whiter, which clearly they're trying to do. And clearly they're going to continue to do with all these sort of intimidation tactics and all the stuff they're doing and all the stuff that Clea Mitchell's out there doing with $1.3 billion funded to Leo Leonard that we don't talk enough about. I mean, it's really dark, bad stuff. They don't believe in democracy.
Yeah.
And what would you do? You'd also try to make them less educated, which I think a lot of this whole war on higher education is part of that. I mean, it's not just that they convinced themselves that socialism, like higher education was an on-ramp to socialism. I think they literally know that they do better with less educated voters. So in a crude sense, they go, okay, let's make them less educated. We'll do better. So I think you're in kind of a race of which is going to triumph. I still think, it's there is no such thing as voter fraud. It really doesn't exist. I mean, I did this for years. I saw more elephantitis cases than voter fraud. And elections are still run locally. It's still going to be very difficult to do. So probably Democrats should have a very good election. I don't see anything Trump is doing to expand his vote.
I want to get into the campaign tactics next, but I want to give you a counterpoint to what you're saying, which is maybe you're right. Maybe this was a confluence of really bad luck. I mean, the dude almost like gets assassinated by a centimeter. The economy the inflation is persistent. And Biden's age, right? Like there's like a bunch of bad, stuff that happens. A lot of people that vote for him out of wrong track, out of pocketbook feelings, not out of endorsement of authoritarianism. But maybe like the kind of why they voted for him doesn't matter that much. And that now that he got in there for a year, in a couple of years, like he'll do too much damage to be able to rebuild it. And so I want to play for you the counterpoint from somebody. I found one person even darker than both of us. It's former Judge Michael Luttig.
Yes.
Really credible jurist, conservative jurist. Somebody who was on the short list for Supreme Court back when you were working for W. Here's Luttig with Terry Moran over the weekend.
If the courts can't stop this, and there are three plus more years of it, who does?
It cannot be stopped now, Terry. Again, the discussion that's going on is this: can it ever be stopped? And the only answer, completely unsatisfactory and unsatisfying, is, well, at least in a year and a half, there'll be another election, and hopefully the House will change hands. To which I say, the first thing I say is, to my friends, there'll be nothing left in a year and a half. But suppose it changes, so what? The damage has been done now.
I hate to laugh, but Luttig's, I love the bluntness of Luttig there.
Love
Where are you at on so what? Okay, maybe you're right. Maybe they are at their strike, but maybe too much damage has been done. Where are you at on that?
I think, to quote Lawrence of Arabia, destiny is a choice. And I think it's how the Democrats handle it once they win.
Yeah.
So
that's what I wanted to go to next.
If I could say to you, okay, look, very reasonable. Trumpism went too far. What we need to do is elect a normal governing party who is going to go out there and do very positive things for the middle class and remind people that government can play a positive role in their lives, and that will be enough. That sounds reasonable. The only problem is Biden tried that.
Right.
He did that. I mean, in every way, he was a very successful president on the economy and everything. I mean,
not inflation. The
not inflation, but Jesus Christ. I mean, what is it? Is the record low unemployment or the record stock market that bothers you the most? 21 highs in the stock market. I mean,
I don't think there's people that were that were benefiting from the record highs in the stock market. That's the reason why I lost. So.
But he's still, Trump's best group is, like most Republicans, those that make over $100,000 a year. But so I would say we ran that experiment and it failed. So Democrats have to quote Jonathan Last, act like a dissident movement. And I still think that piece that Jonathan wrote, I don't know, months ago is going to be one of the pieces people are going to look back on and read. And I read it regularly. I just wrote a piece and quoted from it. So, what I think they do, they have to give up on the idea that they're a governing party. They have to give up on the idea that the Republican Party is a traditional political party of which you can have some sort of meeting of the minds and some sort of compromise. You can't. What they need to do on the first day is they ought to cut off all funding for the executive branch. They ought to pass legislation to nationalize Starlink, nationalize SpaceX. They ought to defund ICE. And then on the second day, they should get more aggressive. And they need to have a vote on whether or not Maxwell should be sent back to a real prison, and so put everybody on the record. And they've got to start using these broad, sweeping categorizations of MAGA. Right now, racism is working completely to the benefit of the Trump people. They get out there and they can use all this racial stuff, and it works. And no one on the Democratic Party is calling their number on it. No one is making them pay for being racist. And this whole idea, I get why Harris did this. He wanted to be post-racial, all of this. But the whole idea that we don't talk about race, I think, is leaving a very potent card on the table for the Democrats. They need to wake up every day and say, we're right, they're wrong. There's more of us than there are of them. And if you support Pete Hegseth, you're not a patriot. So you say that, does that mean you're saying that John Thune's not a patriot? Yes. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And he can prove it today. He can vote to have him resign. Now, does the Democratic Party have that ability? I don't know. I think there's a very positive sign. You look at what Newsom's doing, and he's being positively rewarded, and it's better than most. Politicians tend to do what's in their best interest.
Eventually.
So that's a positive sign.
Yeah.
That you can go out and do this stuff, and that the market and your base. They need to write off this whole idea. I'm going to be a president for all of America and all of this. It's a great idea. But you have to quit acting like it's true. You have to write off that. I mean, look at everything that Biden did for red states. I mean, the majority of the Infrastructure Act in a lot of categories went to red states. And rural areas, tremendous efforts there. It didn't mean anything. They've got to be passionate. They got to have courage. They got to have conviction, and they have to not hesitate from saying these are not good people.
I want to be with you. In my brain, I'm with you. I get a little, I don't know, like centristy, normie Tim gets a little uncomfortable when I start to hear all of that stuff. I worry that we end up in a zero-sum situation that takes us back to Lydig, but like we can't really get out of it. I guess my response to that is, I think that you are right, that is the right short-term political move for the Democrats, is to cause as much pain as humanly possible for them when they get back in. I don't know if Hakeem Jeffries and these Democrats are actually up for doing that, but I think that in a vacuum would be their best short-term move. Don't you worry though that we just end up, in this death spiral? Like the Republicans up in a death spiral over it?
So I think we're all in a death spiral. So, the person who was in charge of intelligence for the U.S. in World War I famously said, "Gentlemen don't read other gentlemen's mail."
Okay.
So then cut to 1944. That same person is now Secretary of War, as, it was then called. And he's sitting in his office trying to decide if they're going to blow up Hiroshima or Nagasaki first. That's the transition. Yeah. So I would urge Democrats to get to the Hiroshima and Nagasaki stuff quickly and get out of this gentlemen don't read other mail stuff. You don't get to pick the fight that you're in. You have to fight the fight that you are in. And you have to adapt. I mean, it's a story of the Ukraine war. They're still going to be up there rolling tanks across, no, you have to adapt. Newsom's showing signs of that. They're fumbling around trying to learn how to do this, how to play around with it. And no, I don't think, look, I mean, maybe this is just my campaign side because to a fault, I never worried about governance.
Right.
It was like, that's what they do. We do elections. No, after that, you're on your own. Yeah. As Arthur Finkelstein said to me once when I asked him why someone who's gay could elect so many rabid anti-gay guys, he goes, hey, they're on their own after I elect them. Which is kind of what lawyers say, by the way. Everybody, they have a nice little moral out.
Yeah, that defense. You saw, I am the same, and so I say this as throwing myself on the mercy of the court. But that mindset was so endemic. Like you would hear that after Trump won. That was such a common thing for like the strategists that stuck with him to say. Like they would compare themselves to defense lawyers, and I'm like, this isn't actually like a defense lawyer.
No,
you don't have to take a client in politics.
No,
you can choose not to take a client. Like there's no right to a fair trial if you're running for president of the United States.
And this idea that this is what the people wanted. Well, where I grew up, they wanted slavery. That didn't exactly mean it was good.
Yeah, right.
At least the people that could vote wanted slavery.
Right.
So, I think one of the things that always fascinates me is why in the 30s didn't America become fascist when we had this huge fascist movement? And probably it's because FDR was president, not Lindbergh or Henry Ford. So maybe we go back to that old thing we used to learn in civics when we still had it, leaders matter. So what would have happened if Romney had won? It would have been the same party, but it would have gone in a different direction.
Or maybe they overthrow him.
What I think, listen, Tim, I think something happened inside the Republican Party that we evolved a system that rewarded weakness and compliance. And it probably goes back to the fact that 64, when, Eisenhower 56 gets 39% of the black vote. Goldwater gets 7%, right?
Right.
Trump gets 8% in 20. That's 1 point every 56 years. So you become a predominantly white party. It evolves a certain kind of way of operating where the next person's turn, it's your turn. You're rewarded by weakness, by compliance. You know, the mavericks of the world aren't really rewarded. I mean, McCain called himself a maverick, but he really wasn't that much of a maverick. And I think that, as opposed to the diversity of the Democratic Party, which is a great problem for him in many ways in messaging, but it's also a great ultimate asset because it's more like the country. That's how we ended up with this. How is it we ended up with such weak politicians in the Republican Party that Trump understood that if I gave them power, they would go against everything they swore they were for? You have to give Trump credit for that kind of feral weakness.
Yeah.
A sensing of weakness that he has. And look, we used to say you can't negotiate with terrorist organizations for a reason. The Republican Party is an extremist movement. You can't negotiate with them. The only thing they're going to respect is fear and force. And look, once you cross a line that I'm going to be for the guy who organized the mob to come into my workplace and try to kill me and my colleagues, you're not going to have it like, well, I don't know, his position on the law of the sea treaty. That's too much. I'm not going with that. You know, you've reached the point of compliance and I mean, if you ask someone like Marco Rubio, if Trump wanted one of his children for tribute, might work up the courage to say if he could pick the kid.
Yeah.
But
yeah, not the one that made the Florida football team. One of the other ones.
That's it. Yes, it would be.
I'm going to tell you about this game-changing product I use before a night out with drinks. It's called pre-alcohol. Let's face it, after a night with drinks, people in their 40s don't bounce back like they used to. I have to make a choice. You can either have a great night out or a great next day. That is, until I found pre-alcohol. Let me tell you, there's a surefire way to wake up feeling fresh after drinks with friends. It is with pre-alcohol. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough next days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. I got to tell you, that you have solidified your relationship with a brand when something like this happens. I was going to see beloved Beto in New Orleans a couple weeks ago, and he was playing a local music venue, the Howlin' Wolf. Shout out to our friends at the Howlin' Wolf. And, it was still going. The town hall was taking a while. I was like, I'll have one drink, right? One drink. You head back to the bar, lean over to the bartender, ask him for a bourbon and Coke. And he looks back at me without missing a beat and says, have you taken your ZBiotics yet? And so I appreciate you, Howlin' Wolf bartender, for supporting our program and listening to our ad campaign. Better than... a handful of people have given me negative feedback about the drinking chat, and I got to tell you, people, we're performing out here. We're out here, ZBiotics. We're coming in every morning, delivering you A+ content. Be happy with what you got, and thank ZBiotics for their contribution to it. Go to zbiotics.com/thebulwark to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use the Bulwark at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/thebulwark and use the code THEBULWARK at checkout for 15% off. Special shout-out Rudy Giuliani for this product. All right, I wanted to campaign. I have a couple more news items to get to, but I just while we're campaign dorking and thinking about the Democrats and what they can do. You mentioned Newsom. I'm looking out there right now, and you see a bunch of different models for how to handle the moment. And I think that there's a lot of people on social media that like to pretend like they know what the exact one is, and I think the answer is we don't really know what the right one is, and so I want to give a couple of them to you and see what you like about each. We got this guy in Maine, the planter, that's running kind of just this populist, maybe a little Bernie-ish, but maybe with a little bit more of a working man's vibe. Maybe Bernie-ish policies, maybe a little bit different of a vibe.
Fuck them, they fucked us.
Yes, Slotkin is out there trying to do this sort of centrist butch, like we got to fight harder, but I'm going to do it from the middle. You got Gavin, who's like we mentioned already, who's also doing the fighting thing, but is more of kind of a cipher. Like the ideology doesn't really even matter. It's sort of an American Psycho fighting version of it. You've got some of the governors that are, trying to I think this tactic that you rejected earlier, but I want to throw it out there, which is a lot of these Midwestern governors, Whitmer, Shapiro, that are doing more. I'm going to pick my spots. I'm going to govern well. I have a high approval rating. Maybe there's another one I'm not mentioning. What do you think? What of those tickles your pickle?
I'm for all of them. I think this idea that you need one message is, well, first, you remember from campaigns when we would try to have an education week or jobs week. We never even could do it then.
Yeah, right.
And then you only had like 3 or 4 streams of media influence that really were going to matter.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember vividly in 2000, the New York Times would go online at midnight every night, East Coast time.
Yeah.
And it's 11 o'clock Austin time. You could look at your watch. By 11:15, you'd be getting calls from every reporter that basically used what the Times put on their front page as their assignment editors.
Yeah, right.
Those days are over.
Yeah.
So I think you could and should do all of those things because the people that are drawn to it are going to hear you. People who are shopping for that will hear it. Why do people go to AOC and Bernie? It's not so much their ideology as their passion. They're fighting. That's what they're for. So I think that there's not one clear way to do this. And I think, when I see the Democratic Party having 250 focus groups to determine what young men want.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, it's like sending the best journalists to America to figure out why men go to strip clubs. I think we know. I don't think you need to have focus groups.
Yeah.
And so it's very
I
much.
even figured it out eventually.
Yeah,
Not my cup of tea. But I can figure it out. I didn't need a pollster to tell me.
So I think the illusionary search of a perfect message is always in a campaign a terrible, terrible trap to fall into. It's the idea there's the perfect spot syndrome.
Yeah.
There's not. You have to do a lot of different things. And I think that ultimately the test for each of those candidates, politicians, office holders is what do you do best? I always thought as a consultant, your job was figure out what your person did best and make them do it great. And the other stuff, just make sure they don't do it so badly it's going to be disqualifying. And that's what it should be. So, a guy in Maine is going to be different than Josh Shapiro. Should be,
Yeah.
Different market, different backgrounds. Slotkin, was a warrior. She's a warrior queen. She should run as a warrior queen.
Yeah. I agree with that. I guess my question is, if my follow-up is, do you think that, and I'm talking more like long-term, like building appeal, improving the party image, which is low right now. I'm not really talking about if you're a generic House member running in some, against whoever's replacing Don Bacon. I'm not talking like a House race, but for the bigger names, do they have to run against the party at some level? And you look back and Obama really ran against the party in Iraq.
Yeah,
obviously Trump ran against the party. Do you think that they have to do that? Or do you think that
Clinton ran against the party?
Yeah.
He was a different kind of Democrat.
Yeah.
Turns out he's a conservative, just for the death penalty. He was going to end welfare as we know it.
Yeah.
Look, I think that, I don't think people really care about parties anymore. Yeah. So I think trying to rehabilitate the Democratic Party is sort of like trying to boil the ocean. You rehabilitate the Democratic Party. It's like, you get in a campaign and you're in primaries and you're losing. The only thing you can do is to win. You can't talk your way out of it, Right. And either you're going to win or you're going to not.
Yeah, you're in the barrel. Once you get in the barrel.
You can't, well, let me tell you what really happened,
Yeah.
So I think it really depends on, you have to win. And once you win, it starts to heal itself.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I saw an interview with Jake Tapper, and he was saying, that sort of observing his 16, 17-year-old son who plays football and, really the Democratic Party doesn't have anything to offer him. I'd say, well, I don't know. Does any party have anything to offer some 17-year-old guy playing football? I hope not. I mean,
what does the Trump party have to offer him? The ability to say the word pussy without feeling ashamed about it? Great.
Well,
Thanks.
I don't think that's a test. Look, I think with all of that largely symbolic stuff that I was reeling off that they need to do, they also need to do very tough class warfare. they do need to go out and say, we're giving a tax cut to billionaires, to cut Medicaid. They should talk about that.
Yeah.
They should put a thing out there that they want to have a 10% wealth tax on every person worth over, pick a number, $500 million.
I love that Stuart Stevens is a wealth tax man.
Look, my party now has embraced nationalizing industries.
Yeah.
So that just seems like a logical next step. Plus, we're the pro-Putin party.
Yeah.
So, I just trying to, be compliant with the party now. Every poll I ever saw that said, like, even polling people over $1 million, was like 95-5. And you wondered who the fuck were the 5? Were that really that many millionaires? So I think they need to do that stuff. Look, how many House members are going to run bragging and make spots about bragging about stuff that Biden passed that they voted against? A whole lot. They're already doing it. All that infrastructure stuff, all that money they got spent.
Yes, Nancy Mace doing this the other day.
Yes, they're going to do this. I think that's a tremendous opportunity to go out and attack them.
One more thing on the class war. Now that Stuart Stevens is a class warrior, that's good. I've got some of Mitt's friends. I'm gonna call Bob White and make sure he sees that clip. Just want to make sure he knows you're a class warrior now. I want to ask you about Zoron really quick, because there's this Politico story that says this. I didn't write down who said this. Some Democratic strategist. Mamdani is the greatest threat to Democrats probably since Reagan, because he's everything Democrats have been accused of being, and in fact is, to the extreme. He goes on, Republican ad makers will know what to do with Zoron. You were a Republican ad maker. What do you think of that?
So the guy who wants to, I think I'm quoting you. You pointed this out. The guy that wants to maybe open 5 city-owned grocery stores is the socialist versus the party that's out there taking 10% of, massive industries like Intel. Really? I think you run right at that. I wouldn't run away from that. I think, first of all, I think there's a chance this guy might actually be a successful mayor. I was around him a little bit the night after, I ran into him at NBC the night after he won, which is, not a great test. Most people are at their best the day after they win an upset.
Sure.
But, I think he's someone who likes to be liked.
Yeah,
he's not Bernie. Bernie revels in not being liked. So I think if this guy gets in there, and look, it's not like, he came out of the desert as El Cid. He's, Upper West Side liberal, went to Bowdoin, Mother's Academy Award winner, his wife's from this, vastly wealthy family. This is not,
right.
He's not Bernie. And I think that if he does stuff and it's proving to be very unpopular, he'll change. And I think he's fluid enough to do that. He'll say, okay, learn, I'm like, whatever, I'm 10 years old, I'm learning. And he's likable. So, I would say the Democratic Party, I would ask, Democrats, you'd rather Andrew Cuomo? Really? Crazy. When Bill Clinton endorsed Andrew Cuomo, I guarantee if you were tracking from Indami, that's the night you went ahead. It was like a T-Rex endorsing a wildebeest, it's like, really? Or some guy who seems to have confused being a character in The Wire with being mayor. That's the choice. You're really going to be better off. I don't know.
So you don't think the ads, the Republican ads, because this is what they worry about. And I'm 100% with you on everything you said. When Zoran came on the show, obviously all the Intifada stuff is what made all the news. But what I think was the most notable thing was, like, he tried really hard to win over Bulwark people. Like, he was thinking about, like, what are the policies that he cares about that would appeal to centrist type folks. He wasn't giving away his values. He was just like, I think government should work. I want to cut red tape. Like, he listed a couple of things. So you could tell he was trying. And he wants to your point about he wants to be like, that's a good trait, actually. And I think that's right. And he's obviously very charming, and which is what Democrats could use. And so I'm with you on everything. And I think that who the hell knows if he'll be a good mayor or not. But I think that his instincts are more towards wanting to be a good mayor than wanting to be an ideologue, or he's not a crazy person like the Chicago guy. Anyway, What about the ads, though? I mean, he did, like, he was tweeting some crazy shit about queer liberation. Like, we don't need cops because of queer liberation. And he had some bad tweets at the height of the awakening.
Yeah, he does. He's kind of like our vice president. But look, I think if you're a party where you have a lunatic of declining mental powers as president who's put Russian stooges, drunks, former drug addicts who are destroying the country, and you're worried if you allow your party be defined by a guy who's mayor of New York because he wants 5 grocery stores or something. You should just, the only honorable thing to do is just when you wake up the next day is just kill yourself. Because if you allow that, so how is it that we're having a discussion about what is wrong with the Democratic Party when you have the Republicans? I mean, look what they're doing. It's insane. I do not understand how the Democratic Party allows this to happen. You lost an election. Okay, get over it. We lost elections. People do lose elections. That's actually why we have them. It's a good thing you lost. The fact, somebody's got to lose. That's an essential element of democracy. Yeah. But you lost with a candidate who would have been a perfectly reasonable president who wasn't out of the American mainstream. Okay, come back. You win. And you should be prosecuting the Republican Party for its complete failure. I mean, it has taken the legacy of the greatest generation and it's completely trashed it. And this is the pro-Putin party, I mean, I'd be taking J.D. Vance's family. He's got these nice kids and saying, how's he going to feel if his kids are kidnapped? Really? You're for Putin? You're defending Putin on national television? Really? I mean, they need to just go at this stuff and they need to very personalize it. I mean, I would be putting billboards in front of Mike Johnson's church saying, does Mike Johnson support a pedophile, child sex trafficker, and a club fed? Make them answer it.
Yeah.
Same in Tom Holman's hometown where he tried to deport some guy that people actually liked into town.
Right.
Personalize it.
Learning a new language opens the door to new friends, new cultures, and maybe even a whole new life. So why not start that journey today? You can start speaking a new language with confidence thanks to Babbel's conversation-based technique that quickly teaches you useful words and phrases about the things you actually talk about in the real world. There's over a dozen languages available to learn at your own pace, so you can achieve your goals with material tailored to your individual proficiency level, interests, and time availability. I was talking with one of my buddies when I was in New York. Went out for a little meal. We were chatting about his life. He was talking about his jobs, giving him flexibility to live overseas, which is awesome. How many people in America are thinking about living overseas right now? Quite a few. And one of the problems that he had was he was spending a lot of time in France, and the French, he's fucking French, they're pretty prickly about their language. And he knows a little bit. But the friend groups he was hanging out with, the people he was trying to flirt with, they're all speaking French all the time. He felt very ostracized by it. And what do you know? He's come to the Bulwark. He's using our code. He's using Babbel. He's getting updated. So the next year when he goes, he can, as aforementioned, make new friends and see new cultures. Handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel's lessons are voiced by real native speakers and built with science-backed cognitive tools like spaced repetition and interactive features to fit any learning style. They also have Babbel games for sentence building and spelling reinforcement, culture bites that deliver content and insider knowledge about the language. With over 60 million subscriptions sold, Babbel's 14 award-winning courses are backed by a 20-day money-back guarantee. So get talking with Babbel. I want you to learn another language. So I'm teaming up with Babbel to gift you 55% off subscriptions, but only for our listeners at Babbel.com/Bulwark. Get up to 55% off at Babbel.com/Bulwark, spelled Babbel.com/Bulwark. Babbel.com/Bulwark. Rules and restrictions may apply. I'd like to end the podcast on you telling some whining Democratic strategists to kill themselves, but we have a couple of news items I need to ask you about and football. You mentioned the foreign policy stuff. So over the weekend, you've several times brought up how this is the party of Putin-philes at this point. Like, even if you steel-manned their case for like nationalists foreign policy and America First foreign policy and like what their stated goals were, and you don't include like any theories about the Trump Putin love, like you just take them all at face value. Like, their strategy is failing miserably. Like this weekend, Xi, Modi, and Putin had a chummy summit in China. Like, we've driven Russia and China back together and driven India into their arms and gotten nothing for it. And it's like really remarkable.
Well, maybe that's because J.D. Vance is married to someone whose parents were from India. That's what Laura Loomer would say. How can you get a real American? Look, I think Trump likes that. I think that's what Trump wants. I think Trump wants this. I mean, clearly, it's nothing new. He obviously wants to be a strong man. Yeah. And, I think a lot of the Republicans, they look at Russia. They say it's all run by white men. As he says,
that explains just how soft he is on China, though. I was watching, what interview was it? Oh no, he did an interview with the Daily Caller, the very important journalistic outfit over the weekend. I was reading this, and she asked him. Most of the questions she asked Trump were like, "Shouldn't you be on Mount Rushmore?" But there were like one or two issues that she actually challenged him on, and one of them was the Chinese students. And she's like, "Why are you bringing in Chinese students? That's not America first." And then Trump goes off in his thing about how he and she have a great relationship, and how she does a good job for his people, and how they're working on so many great deals, and it's unbelievably pathetic.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you pet Trump, he'll follow you home. And, it's not a hard thing to figure out. This is a guy who can't resist attacking the Lincoln Project. We make an ad and we run it Mar-a-Lago on the Golf Channel and he responds.
Yeah.
What if you had like the apparatus of a foreign intelligence agency to manipulate this guy, not just buying a few ads on the Golf Channel?
Yeah.
How difficult would it be? Look, I think the great underreported story of our time is Russian compromise of the Republican Party. And on all fronts, it goes back to the NRA. It goes back to the fact that, we shouldn't forget Russians tried, and they did help, as Marco Rubio proved, elect a Republic. They wanted to elect Donald Trump president. They got him. What did they get? They got more than they could imagine. So that's how people end up being compromised. So even if you're a Roger Wicker or John Thune and you really do believe in your heart for Ukraine, you're compromised. You can't go out and do what it takes to force that to happen. That's what's happened to the party. And it's just nothing like this has ever happened in history. It's like Churchill's party became the pro-Nazi party. Did
you know that we let that the latest Russia deadline has passed?
Yes.
The latest red line to pass today. Here we are. I don't know. Maybe after we tape, John Thune and the Republican Senate will come down hard and force Trump's hand on
the only way to get Trump to care about this is if you pointed out that his next wife, who's probably in high school somewhere, maybe in Eastern Europe, may be suffering, and that he has to, this next beauty queen. Look, it is evil. It is evil in our time. One of the two major parties of the United States and America supporting a war, a genocidal war that's of kidnapping and rape and torture. And look, I'm older than you. My dad, spent 3 years fighting the South Pacific. My uncle was wounded in France, never really recovered. You think all those people, who lost their lives, who are buried across Europe, if they came to life, you think they'd want to fight for Putin or they want to fight for Ukraine? And that's the legacy they've and it is evil. RFK Jr. is evil. And we should be saying that.
I have one other potential theory on how to maybe win Trump over on this. It's a Wall Street Journal story this morning. So yesterday, the Trump crypto token officially started being traded on the open market. Previously, it had been only private deals. The Trump family has notched as much as $5 billion on paper as of Monday after its flagship crypto venture opened trading. It is now the Trump's most valuable asset, exceeding all of the property portfolio. They raised $750 million in cash from investors to buy the cryptocurrency. The investors are private. The market for one of the coins in this little bucket of tokens is the dollar peg stable coin. That's being propped up by Binance, whose convicted founder, Changpeng Zhao, you can wonder where he's from if you want. He's been seeking a presidential pardon. This is one of
the things that Democrats need to do. They need to open investigations into all of these crimes, these are crimes. And as was a lot of what Elon Musk did. It's a crime. It's against the law.
Agnew resigned for over 100K.
100K in a paper bag. I think it was actually less, maybe.
I think it was 10K in a paper bag, and then there was some other, if you add it all up, some other side deals. But this is $5 billion.
I rest my case, and no one in the Republican Party will say a thing. So one of the things they need to do is they need to go in and they say, end all stock trading of members of Congress. They need to pass a law demanding you release your tax returns. And they need to do all of the stuff. They need to open basically a 9/11 style commission into the crimes of Trump. And they need to start using it in that language. And they're hesitant about it. We might offend people or something.
Yeah.
That's what they need to do. I mean, this is the greatest. This is Putin. This is actually worse than what Putin did as he rose to power. He cut more people in on it because he didn't have the power base that Trump has. He needed to cut in the former KGB thugs to form his kleptocracy.
The threatening you're right about the threatening. And I don't, Trump's so old and at this point feels like, he shits gold or whatever. And I don't think he's going to be intimidated by any of this, but the other people might be. This is Malinowski, this morning sent this, former congressman, Democrat from New Jersey. He writes, any Democrat interested in being president today should say that they would slap Magnitsky Act anti-corruption sanctions on any foreign person or company that bought the Trump crypto to get some value out of the U.S. And it's just like one idea, but like that is the time. Like these, the other people should be scared and realize that the party is going to be over. Or the party might be over. Party might be over. We don't know. But in 2029, the party might be over. The Democrats win. It won't be Merrick Garland again, and they'll be coming for you. And so if you're fucking El Salvador or you're one of these crypto guys that is, running a scam, recognize that the cops are coming for you if the new guys get in charge. And maybe that is a way to intimidate other people who have concerns about their self-interests.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, what is Trump? Trump, these executive orders he puts out are just press releases.
Right.
But he puts them out.
Yes.
Democrats need to learn from that.
Yeah.
If they control the House is staying firm. They can pass a bunch of symbolic stuff that makes Republicans vote on very uncomfortable stuff. And they need to do that. And they need to make it clear they are going to go after these people. And they are going to go after their families because that's where the money's going. And not just the Trump family, all these other people that are making it. They have to go after them. You can't look at it as a normal time. I mean, we say that's not a normal time. Well, then you can't respond in a normal time.
Last topic before we get to football on it not being a normal time. So this morning, Judge Breyer found the Trump administration violated the Posse Comitatus Act by using the military for domestic law enforcement in Los Angeles. You were on one of the Lincoln podcasts talking about how Trump is doing basically what the Jade Helm conspiracy was on all this. I want to play for you. I played this on the podcast a couple weeks ago. I want to play it one more time. This is a MAGA comedian type podcaster that's in this rare case, not a contradiction in terms, Tim Dillon. I just want to play this for you real quick.
They've already got the cops on the street that are not cops or that are the military. They've already got the National Guard on the street. They already have all your information in D.C., and now they just get to decide what is and isn't over the line. That should scare everybody. You're fucking nuts, dude. If this doesn't scare you, you're nuts. All of these things that Alex Jones, and I've had Alex on, I like Alex, but all these things that Alex Jones was like worried about when I listened to him in the late 90s, early 2000s are coming to fruition. Military in the street, the FEMA camp, the tech company that monitors everything, the surveillance. This is all of that.
And what the Democrats should be saying is, and we intend to use it. And we will be coming after you. We do have lists. Thank you very much. We now have this masked force. We've accepted that, funded larger than the Marines. They're government employees. They'll do whatever the fuck we order to or we fire them. That's how they should be responding to it. Like, yes, you've created this powerful chief executive with an armed military that is and we're going to use that. Understand that. And they ought to be thinking of inventive ways to do that. It's the only way. You have to just sit in a room and not say, okay, what sounds reasonable? You have to say, what is it that it will take to stop stop this? How do you instill fear? And fear is the only thing that will teach them. Absolutely the only thing.
That's one option. I'm listening to that. I'm open to that as a good option. I do think installing fear is smart. I think another response to that is, is this not a way to get these guys back? You know, and to start talking to them about this, and just
hey, listen.
I think that the crank realignment really hurt the Democrats, where every single person that had strange conspiratorial thoughts all voted for one candidate. That used to be dispersed among both parties kind of equally. We both had our cranks in the corners, and Trump aligned them all. And I feel like going after the Trump masked thugs in this in language that resonates with cranks. It's not maybe something for every single Democrat to do, but certainly for some of them.
And this is why the Epstein stuff works so well.
Exactly.
Because it is exactly everything that they said. I mean, it's like that classic cartoon, the MAGA guy dies and goes to heaven and meets, St. Peter. And the first question he asked to Jeffrey Epstein, who killed Jeffrey Epstein? He goes, it was suicide. And his response is, this goes deeper than I thought. So that is, we're going to be, running something in the Lincoln Project. Trump's, I think, universally accepted greatest achievement was warp speed.
Yeah. And
you have this former lifelong Democrat, radical lefty RFK Jr. is attacking the MAGA great achievement of vaccines. Really? You're going to let this guy, this traitor, this ex-junkie traitor dispel, ruin the legacy of Donald Trump's first term? Really?
I'm surprised to hear you disparaging RFK's steroid use, since you famously tried steroids.
I use the word abuse.
Okay, got it.
The thing about.
Can you eye him as a former steroid trier? We'll say trier. Do you eye RFK? How do you assess him? Was based on your expertise.
Well, his voice is affected by steroids. All this stuff about this other thing, all these things are affected by steroids. His weird sort of manner that he has. You can see it with a lot of these ICE guys. These seem to be roid rage more than any kind of law enforcement. It's like they went to Gold's Gym at last call on Free Steroids Day and just said, hey, you want a job, guy? RFK Jr. He's a tragic figure in American life, right? I mean, horrible, horrible tragedies in his life. His siblings have adapted to that and been, positive lives. If you've never read what his defense of using heroin, how it worked for him, quote unquote, how he'd still be doing it if it continued to work. That's pretty weird. There's just something deeply off about that. And the idea that this person, and who's it going to hurt? The kids going to Exeter and Lawrenceville and Choate, they're going to get vaccinated. I don't think their parents are going to say, well, I heard RFK Jr., and they're going to find doctors who will do it. If they have to pay under the table, if they have to put them on a plane and go to, Mexico, France, wherever. It's the people that are most vulnerable are going to get hurt.
All right. Most importantly, both wins. Ole Miss had a cupcake this weekend. LSU goes on the road to Clemson. LSU defense looks as good as it might have looked since 2011. Yep. I worry a little bit about the Rebs. Last year felt like it was their year. They blew a couple games. Could have been it. They had the talent.
No
Jackson
question.
Dart is looking good in training camp for the Giants. So I worry about that for you.
Yes,
but we
should.
can both at least have one joy together, which is that the Alabama Empire is over.
That Alabama lost. Yes,
the Empire is over. They didn't just lose. The Empire is over. It is done. It is done.
The Death Star. Yeah, I agree. I think last year was the greatest choke in Ole Miss history, one of the greatest chokes in sports football. I mean, they had 9 guys went to the NFL, first round draft pick quarterback.
Yeah.
And they lose to Kentucky at home.
It's tough.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, it does have to go. I mean, just give LSU credit. But Kelly has said, to his credit, I guess, he's open about it, the payroll for this year's roster is $18 million.
And it's fucking worth every penny, Stu.
I mean, how many of these people are going to take pay cuts when they go to the NFL? I mean, literally they are. There are some of them, once they get past the first, 4 rounds.
It's worth every penny. They're playing in front of 100,000 people.
But
they're playing on prime time.
As Texas A&M proved, You can still spend all that money and still play like shit.
That's true.
So, I'm not a Kelly
I've already
fan.
blocked out January. I'm playing it. This is where I'm at. I need a distraction. I'm high on my own supply, and I'm already blocking out some playoff travel. So that's where I'm at. After one game,
Yeah, no,
maybe
listen,
it's knocking on wood over here. But by the grace of Garrett Nussmeier's knee, go I on this. But we're feeling.
They looked really good, man. I'm not a Kelly fan. I don't like his whole affect, but
yeah, I love Wayne.
They look good.
Ole Miss, how are you feeling about Ole Miss?
It goes to what I say about sports. It will always break your heart, but at least it reminds you have one. I think there'll be one great moment and some disappointment.
All right. Well, I hope they exceed your expectations. That's Stuart Stevens. Go read some of his books. And hope to have you back again soon, man. How about me if you find yourself in New Orleans?
Not very often anymore.
You got to, though. You got to. Come see your mom's old stomping ground.
I know.
We'll have a drink together.
I'd love that.
All right. We'll see you, brother. Everybody else, see you back here tomorrow for another edition of the podcast. Peace. Go Tigers.